when you measure up the actual slot from here to here, and on the other end, on this top support, even though it's only about 25mm thick, the taper was over 1/2 mil and 0.8 almost a mil in one corner. So when you're trying to bash in the aluminium extrusion, the poor design of the actual frame, as you can see here, this is the thinnest part and the weakest part. They should have increased those radiuses so it was more beefy. On all the frames, that's the weakest part and that's the smallest part they've made it. So if you do bash it, you may crack it or split it, so that's why you need to file it. So you file with your 1/4 inch file, square file, starting at the largest area, which so far seems to be opposite the smooth bed face. So the bed face is the smallest diameter, smallest sizes, and at the back is the largest. So you just start to push it in, and you file from the front, the largest area, but make sure you do not rock the file. So you take off a piece on each 4 corners, then try it from the largest area, see how far it moves in, and when it just gets pushed tight, back it back out and then file a bit more. Also check each part of the extrusion to make sure there is no daylight, because you could actually just have it jammed on one corner too loose and all the other 4 corners. So push it in, perhaps get a torch behind if you can, and look for the gaps on these faces. No light should shine through, and that means you're filing it correctly. Also, depending on the way the shrinkage is of the material, you'll find that it's normally this top and bottom sizes you have to file the most. These outside faces seem to be closer. You still have to file them, but not as much. Also keep in mind the most important face is this face here that it's bolted to, because this can be on a perfectly straight, this could be on 10-degree angle. You tighten it up, it will pull the aluminium extrusion up to that face, and that's where you get your error. So this face, those 2 faces need to be square to your main face here on all your brackets. You do that, you file it, you file the chamfer on the aluminium extrusion, take all the burrs off, and probably in a weekend you should be able to file all what have we got, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 3/8 of 24, 48 faces perfectly. Also keep in mind that this upper bracket, the idea of it is it can slide up and down to do your adjustments for your pulley tension. So unless you want to bash it each time with a mallet to adjust the belt tension, you need that one to just be a nice sliding fit. The bottom bracket can be a bit tight. That is also longer, so that's a lot harder to file. So that's a major problem, and an easy solution that may take you a day or 2, but do that first. These are the areas you then also need to counterbore, and also the most difficult one to counterbore is on the inside. So I will mill these on my mill just with a 6mm end mill, but I will use the spot face for the inside brackets. With the aluminium extrusion, they cut on a drop saw, and as it cuts it will throw up a burr. Now you need to get yourself a 4-inch Warding second cut file, that's a thin file, and deburr it. Now, quite simple, just file away each inside, rotate, file away. Use your finger to feel for a burr, keeping in mind that when you file you also put on a slight burr, then when you finish just smooth off the face. Do that for both ends, for all your aluminium extrusions, but do not rip off the plastic at the moment, especially for the uprights. They are the ones that the rollers go on, and if you nick it, scratch it, bend it or dent it, you'll have problems. So keep the plastic sticky wrap on it until the very end. To check, select one of the cross frame members, only peel that back so far and use that for your template for your filing. So you have one of these and you file all of these and the lower brackets to suit. Then when you come to take it off, as you can see, all the swarf on the inside is stuck. So when you strip it off, get an air hose or deep breath and just blow it all clean. I recommend that you tap each end of the 3 uprights after you've just filed the burrs off. The reason for that is that you can put a foot on each end, which I'm doing, to level the base and add a little bit of air circulation. These are the ones I've ordered off eBay, M6 thread. Also on the top you can use the M6 bolt to actually pull the top frame bracket down flush with a very large flat washer, of course, or flat plate. Saves you from smashing it with a mallet and maybe hitting off one side or the other. And the third reason is that if the adjustment for the drive pulleys, the belt tension, isn't sufficient or good quality or hopeless, I plan to make up a different type of belt adjuster that uses the top of the frame to have a nut, and the bolt will sit on there, have a spring, have a frame either side to hold the wheel, and then you just tighten the cap screw up, which pulls the thread up, and that will then tighten the belt. I think it's a bit ridiculous to have to move each corner of the frame when you've got it already nice and square and clamped, and it's just a ridiculous idea. Now, because the hole on the inside is 5mm and the tapping size drill for M6 is 5.1mm, if you use a normal tap, that's going to be a lot more difficult to use in so much as it's going to be tighter. You can drill that out 0.1mm, but that is also a bit difficult. So I recommend using differential taps. If you watch my other videos, you would have seen the one on CNC4A tapping 1, 2, 3, and explains the taps and how to use them and why they're good. But basically, the first tap is not only a taper tap. Your normal taps come in taper, intermediate and plug, which means the number of teeth that cut at the front. But these particular type of taps, they're actually smaller on the diameters. Let's just say you're tapping in here, and with a 5.1 drill you may have 70% engagement. By being 0.1 it may go up to 80-85% of your thread depth, binding and all that and tightness. But these, because they're smaller, it may only be 50%, 50%, 50%. So they're easier to tap, they produce a better thread, because the thread's not only cut on the tip but also on the diameters as well. And the other thing too is that if you're not a fantastic tapper and you may start to wander, because the next one is a bit bigger, you can pull it to the side when you're tapping to align it back up. Normally when you tap, you make yourself up just a plain guide like that. This is for M3 and it just has a 3-hole drilled in it. And then you have your drilled a hole in the object you want to tap, and that just rests on there. Put your tap in there and your tap wrench and away you go. But because of these are incremental, I'd have to have 3 of these for each diameter. But I tap by hand quite successfully, and the way you do is you start your thread and then you just rotate this around, checking to see if the tap's straight that way. If it's on that way, you then push it back up a little bit, take a quarter of a turn, let's say, then check the other faces, and you just keep adjusting it until in one turn, let's say, 4 sides, you've got it square. Then once it's square, it will then naturally try to follow the least resistance and go fairly straight. So once you've checked that and you're happy, you then just use the next tap and then the final tap. So they do produce a beautiful finish and quite easy to use, and they're just the cost of a normal set of taps. Have a look at the other video and you'll see how good they are and well worth the effort. This shows you why the location for the nuts needs to be machined down flush to the surrounding surface. The extrusion is now slitting over the nut, which is on the left, and that is the unmachined plastic. And as you can see, even though the nut is nipped up to the plastic, there is a gap between the nut and the aluminium extrusion. The thickness of the extrusion is around 1.8 mil. The depth of the nut area that clears that extrusion is about 1.65, and the height of the plastic extrusion is 1.3. So basically the nut and the plastic adds up to 3 mil, and the thickness of the aluminium extrusion is only around about 2 mil. So you've got over 1 mil of clearance when you've tightened the nut up. So that's why you have to machine it down. The one on the right's been machined down so as you're sitting flush using the spot face, and I'll just tilt this and just show you how much slop there is. So as you can imagine, clamping that up is not going to make a very secure frame. Here you can clearly see the difference in the height. The one on the left, the plastic has been machined down. The one on the right is how it is coming out of the box.